Shazia, this conversation is about the elephant in the room. So I'm sure you've all heard the expression the elephant in the room, and it's the elephant in the room because there's this massive animal in the room, but nobody's naming it. They're all walking around it. So we have this expression, there's an elephant in the room. And in leadership team meetings and board meetings, in families, there's elephants around, there's all over the place. It's like elephants all over the place. And I've been working with a team this year and really exploring like the importance of the elephants in the room, the elephants in the room that generally exist, the things that aren't talked about are the very things that need to be talked about. They're often massive. They're often that there's a significant issue with I don't know, let's say marketing. There's a significant issue with a project in marketing, but it doesn't want to be it can't be mentioned or it mustn't be mentioned or there's a significant issue with a hire of a certain person, but we can't possibly say there's a significant issue with the way the budgeting is done. There's a significant issue with the leader of the team, for example, or we don't really buy into the strategy fully. And so there's all these elephants that come up. And so there I am sat in the team and I'm going, for some reason I'm not. Maybe I don't feel safe. Sometimes I don't feel safe to bring these things up. Sometimes I don't want to threaten others. I don't want to have other people feel bad. I don't want to cause an argument or an issue. So based upon all these things, then it's so much easier for me just to sit there and say nothing. And I had an example in one organization where somebody was hired and they were in the organization for a couple of years and there was various people I was working with who within 2 months knew that he shouldn't still be in the company. And 2 years later, he wasn't. The company decided he wasn't right, but it took 2 years. And that's 22 months longer than it should have been, based upon people afraid of bringing up the elephant in the room. And that 22 months was a significant cost in all sorts of ways. These elephants have massive costs to an organization. So I've been working with this recent team to really help them look at how do you name these things and stand up for what needs to be named for the very good of the organization. Over to you.
Well, it just feels so it's something that you could apply that to, as you said initially, like so many different scenarios. It's not just happening in any one area. Um, and what occurred to me as you were just talking there was, have you ever been in a meeting or something where you have an idea or you have a question or a concern that you just think it sounds too obvious or too simple or too basic or that you're going to be thought of as dot dot dot. And so you don't say it, and then someone else says it, and then a few people around the table are like, I was thinking the same thing. That's what we're talking about here. That's what's happening. And when you're talking about this elephant in the room, the reason it's an elephant in the room is because it's not, it's there's a bunch of people usually who are walking around that.
Yeah, like most people know that the elephant's there. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And often even the people that it concerns will know. And they're grateful that the elephant's not being talked about.
Yes. One of the bits of training I did with the Tavistock Institute years ago was on the psychodynamics of boards. And part of the training was that if there was something that I was feeling that I was feeling that needed to be named, that I felt awkward about naming, it wasn't it wasn't personal to me. It was coming through me to be named for the good of the team. And so two things. One is what you're saying is if it's coming into me, there's at least one other people, probably way more, that will agree with me when I say it. And but even if that isn't the case, it's coming through me because it needs to be discussed by the team. And so it's my duty for the good of the team to be able to work out how to bring these things up.
And what would you say if someone listening to this, for example, might be thinking, well, what if that puts me at risk to be the one who says it? Because that's what we're all doing, right? Is we're waiting for somebody else to bring it up. And so the question that can come up here is like, well, I'm putting myself at risk when I bring up the elephant, if I were to bring up the elephant in the room, because A, what if nobody else does agree with me? What if they have different ideas? B, what if my manager or someone with authority takes issue with what I'm saying? You know, that we what if I'm really conflict averse and I don't want to have a fight? Like all these things that can come up. How would you approach that?
It's a really good question. You've made me think back to a board that I was at. I was on a board. I was a non-exec in a charity, and I had this very thing that, like, it was a charity as well. So there was a lot of people that weren't speaking up and naming things, and I was one of the ones that was. And so my strategy, first of all, was I was new. So strategy number one was, well, keep quiet and get a sense of what's really going on. Build some alliances in the team. Um, Build a relationship with the leader of the team to say, look, I'm seeing like sometimes there's going individually to the leader to with some topics. But then there's naming to the team. Look, when I see something, if like what do you want me to do? What does this team want me to do? Does the team want me to name things? If I've got something that I think is really important for the team, is like I think it's a worthwhile conversation for the team to have. And this is why team development is really critical because the team has got to evolve and gel together and create a safe environment that is encouraging the discussion of elephants. But I, as one individual, can play a key role in working towards that being the right environment that's possible.
I think that's fabulous. And I think one of the things I love about that is it's not quite permission seeking, but it's almost creating an agreement as a team, be like, hey, where are we at? If we have something to say, if we see something that could be important and useful to drive this team and organization forward, do we want to be the kind of team who say it? Really like creating either
Yeah.
permission or an agreement around that to
Yeah.
enable us to then, it might not even be you, right? It might be other people who start bringing stuff to the table, but that creates a level of safety because
Yeah.
we've got an agreement that says we're going to be the
Yes.
kind of company that does that.
Yes. And the other thing that I often encourage is what I call relational level level sharing. And the relational level is not just sharing the elephant, but it's sharing how you're feeling about sharing the elephant. So listen, Shazia, I want you to know that this is really difficult for me to bring up. I'm feeling really bad about it. I've had some sleepless nights thinking about it, but I want to do it for the good of this partnership, or whatever. And so I'm sharing what's going on for me. So they, in this example, you tune in and to access and tune into the humanness of how this is for me. That it's not easy, that I'm not doing it lightly. And that builds some level of connection and relationship that's different for then me to, yeah, say whatever I need to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, brilliant. Because the alternative is that it might feel combative. And it's like really, really
Yes.
starting with vulnerability
Yeah.
opens the other person up to experiencing compassion for you in the face of
Yes.
whatever it is that you're going to say.
Yes. Awesome. So what do we want to leave our listeners with? First of all, I'm going to answer first, if I may.
Yeah,
The
go for it.
first thing I'd like is, what elephants are there? What are the elephants that you can identify in your family? What are the identifiers that you can elevate, like identify the biggest elephants in the company, the organization you're part of? What's not being discussed and addressed? What are the top three things that aren't, that are really being detrimental to the organization?
And what's the implication of that?
Yeah,
How is that impacting you, your team, your family, your kids? What's the cost of not saying the elephant? What of not speaking the truth?
yeah, awesome. Yeah, wonderful. And then take on some of the other advice that we've already shared as to how they might go about it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Martin.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you.